Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Cloud Computing. Chris Horn will be presenting today. He is the Vice President of Sales at Technology Advisors. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box or hold them until after the presentation, when we will open the lines and take questions. And now I'd like to present to you Chris Horn.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, we still have some people chiming in, but some people may come a few minutes late, and that's fine. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to assume that everybody can hear me. If not, somebody will let me know, but I think we're in good shape to start. So we're going to spend a few minutes today talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of cloud computing. And to get started, what I want to do is I want to give a generally agreed upon definition of what we consider to be cloud computing. So according to our good friends at Wikipedia, cloud computing is internet-based computing whereby shared resources, software, and information are provided to computers and other devices on demand, like the electricity grid. So before we go any further, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask a quick question of the attendees in terms of, are any of you currently using cloud computing as we have it defined here? Are you currently using cloud computing either personally or in your business? So we're going to throw a poll up, and if you could just check off the box that makes the most sense, that would be great.
All right, everyone, have you voted?
Okay, so we've got results, and results are that 3/4 of you are trying it in some form or fashion. That's great. Percentage of you looking into it, and nobody's either using it extensively or not using it at all. So that's good for us to understand in terms of where we are with the group. So with that, let's go ahead and close the poll, and we'll get moving. Okay, so everybody should see my screen now, and I'm going to move on. Okay, so there are three basic types of cloud computing, and I'll outline these below. The first is what's called infrastructure as a service, abbreviated to IaaS, and that's the offering for that is centrally cloud-based servers and storage. And examples of that that you would see in the marketplace are Amazon's EC2 or Elastic Compute Cloud offering, the Rackspace Cloud, and Files Anywhere. The second type of cloud computing is software as a service, also known as SaaS, and that offering is for hosted applications or application suites in the cloud or on the internet. Examples of that include Salesforce.com, Sugar CRM, Google Docs, and Hosted Exchange, which is becoming very popular as well. And the third type of cloud computing is platform as a service, also known as PaaS. The offering there is for a full hosted desktop and suite of applications. The entire business services app suite is hosted centrally in a cloud type environment. Examples of that are CloudWorks and Desktop as a Service. Now, when we look at options for deploying a cloud type of implementation, there are three different types of deployment options. The first is called a public cloud, and that's the most common. All of the Salesforce.com and Google Docs, all of those are in what we call the public cloud, which means it's outside of your firewall. A private cloud is a little bit of a, in my opinion, a misnomer, and really what that is that's setting up virtualization for servers inside your firewall. And it's really just a way of virtualizing an environment for replication and for additional servers and things like that. And finally, the third is a hybrid cloud where you may have some modules, services or applications that are in the public cloud, and you are also using virtualization inside your firewall, so you've got a hybrid solution. Now, when we look at cloud deployment options, there are two basic premises for which they are deployed. The first is called single tenant. And a single tenant is, as I describe it, your own little house in a big neighborhood. And what that basically means is that you have your own private space in the cloud offering. So it's unique to you, and you may have servers and storage and software applications in that environment, and you may have your own disk space, but it's unique to you, and you have control of that specific environment. Compare that with multi-tenant. And multi-tenant is where, for instance, example of that would be Salesforce.com. Salesforce.com is a multi-tenant deployment solution where they have one very large database, and then they segment it or slice it up so that each individual company or user has their own wedge or pie slice of that very large database system. So it's your own room in a very large house, but you're still sharing other rooms with other people in the house, although your data is still private to you only. So differences between single tenant and multi-tenant. The cloud computing market is, I don't think I have to tell you that it is one of the biggest hyped buzzwords we know of in technology right now. It was at $46 billion in 2008. It's climbed to $56 billion last year. They're projecting by 2013 that it'll triple to over $150 billion. And right now, 2% of all businesses with less than 100 employees are using some form of cloud computing. So let's talk about the good of cloud computing. And cloud computing really does have a number of benefits that it can bring to companies who are looking for new applications or to modify their existing environment. What's great about the cloud computing platform is that you're going to typically get best of breed environment for applications. So you've got high-end servers that are sitting on virtualized platforms with very, very high-end disk arrays, heavy-duty backup, fault-tolerant type of infrastructure where if a server goes down, that it's replicated and they can fire it back up at another data center. They're usually held in high availability network operations centers, and so you're really getting the best of breed with your IT infrastructure as opposed to, for many smaller customers, a server room or maybe even a server closet that may not have all those wonderful resources. Cloud computing can be extremely scalable, reliable, and secure. And when you look at the sizes of the companies, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, these are companies that have invested literally billions of dollars to build out multiple data centers around the world to be able to accommodate this type of access for customers. And so they've really made large investments, and these types of systems will scale and allow you to add more resources, add servers, add storage, really on the fly. Because of that, you've got lower labor requirements because you're not physically managing the servers inside that server room, server closet. That's all being managed in the cloud, so you can cut down on your IT labor investment. And maybe one of the largest benefits of cloud computing is because it's paid for as a utility, the expenses are operating expenses, which come out of monthly cash flow, as opposed to a capital expense where it's depreciated, amortized, and hits your financials differently. So for many companies, they find this to be the most attractive element of cloud computing. Nice thing about the cloud computing is because it's like a utility, you've got predictable ongoing costs. You're not having to invest in new servers because a server went down and you had a hard drive go bad. You can predict what your monthly costs are ongoing. And related to that is the elimination of obsolescence. So typically when you buy a server, it's in production for 3 to 4 years, and then typically it'll start to get phased out of your environment or will become a development server. With this, you don't have to worry about any of that. The servers are all maintained in the virtualized environment by these large data centers, and you never have to even think about that. Some more benefits of cloud computing. The backup solution is extremely attractive because it's in the cloud. You don't have to take magnetic tapes and feed them into a tape reader and then pull the data off the tapes, which is typically a slow, laborious process. There's also, because it's disk to disk, it's typically more fault tolerant than magnetic tapes. So you've got a better backup solution than typically the typical magnetic tape storage solution. You can rapidly deploy new systems and applications and servers. So, in the case of like the Amazon EC2 cloud, they can get a server fired up for you in minutes, literally minutes. A whole new server with an operating system, server operating system that is, and you can be up and running in a matter of minutes. So it can change from months to minutes. The elimination of costly internal server rooms. And one of the sort of hidden costs that people don't talk about when they think about server rooms are the electrical and HVAC costs associated with server rooms, because as you know, you need to keep those rooms cool, and they have to have power continuously with some sort of a backup solution, and a lot of those costs can just literally go away when you go to cloud computing. Also, the elimination of costly hot sites. So if you have mission-critical applications that your business is required on, many companies will replicate their data in some other remote location and have what's called a hot site, so that if their server room goes down, they can move to another environment and with a minimal amount of interruption. Those are very expensive and can really be eliminated with cloud computing. Further, there's a reduced need for capacity planning, because again, if you're not hosting the servers and the switches and all of the disk arrays and all that sort of thing in your environment, you don't have to worry about planning for those changes and upgrades and things like that. And finally, we've got pay-as-you-go billing. So, and again, as we mentioned with the capital expense versus operating expense, you're just paying on a month-to-month basis, and in some cases, you can just pay for the amount of computing resources you need. So, for instance, if you have a development server that's only being tested by your development team Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 and 5, you can actually turn that server off in the evenings and on the weekends, and you're not paying for the use of that server. So it's actually metered billing, which can be a good cost savings. So let's talk about some of the gotchas of cloud computing. Obviously, cloud computing requires a consistent connection to the internet. I mean, that is the #1 issue that we see, is that you have to have a good, strong connection to that internet in order to be able to access the resources you're looking for. Further, you can have a higher total cost of ownership in some cases. Because you're renting resources, you're paying for as long as you use them, whereas in the case of a server, you buy it, you amortize it, and you depreciate it over time, but you've paid for it once and you own it. And if you're able to get an extended life out of it, it can be less expensive in some cases. Depending on who your provider is, there's concerns about reliability. What's the availability and uptime of that provider? What we call 5 nines availability, which is 99.999% availability, is common for a lot of the larger providers, but it's not universal across all providers. And there are some concerns about servers going down or them having connections and issues, things like that, which might affect your ability to access your resources. There's issues with compliance. So when you look at things like HIPAA laws and other regulatory bodies, there are concerns, and you need to be cognizant of the fact that some regulatory bodies have concerns about data, personal data being stored on servers, public servers, that is possible that with security breaches and intrusions could be infiltrated. So you have to look at your industry and look at the laws and compliance issues you have and make sure that cloud computing is an acceptable solution. Now, the ugly of cloud computing that we've seen is security concerns. So again, we sort of alluded to this before. How secure is your data? What sort of security policies are implemented by the provider of your cloud computing? And have they ever had any issues of hackers? Do you have a good password policy? So on and so forth. Further, data ownership concerns. So, what happens if you decide 3 years from now that you want to take your data and bring it out of the cloud and bring it on-premise to your building, your office, your enterprise? And how do you get your data back? And in what format does that data come back to you? And how easy will it be for you to get from having that cloud environment with your applications hosted on the cloud to being able to have that in your own environment? So that's a really, it can be a very, very challenging concern for companies moving from the cloud back to their own environments. And finally, there's governmental concerns. So the example I bring up is Canada. Canada has a law that says if you're doing business in Canada, they don't want the work to be stored outside of Canada. So that's just one example of where you need to be aware of the laws that are in your jurisdiction and make sure that you understand where your data is being housed so that you're not breaking any government laws. So let's talk a few minutes about best practices for cloud computing. And the first is to make sure that you're talking with whoever your cloud vendor would be about exception and intrusion monitoring systems. So how do they maintain their systems so that they are able to detect and identify and fix exceptions with the servers, if a server goes down, if a disk array goes bad, as well as intrusion, so that they're able to see hacker attempts and make sure that they can stop those and thwart those. You need to be vigilant about your updates and make sure that the staff doesn't gain access to privileges that they're not supposed to. So you need to continuously monitor your security policy and your permissions and roles for your users to make sure that they don't get access to more data than they should or more privileges and rights than they should. You should definitely ask where the data is physically kept. So these large companies have data centers all over the world, and you need to make sure that wherever your data is being stored, that is in compliance with whatever your regulatory and governmental laws require for your particular industry. It's very important. We recommend that you request an independent study or audit. Most of the large organizations have gone through a program called SAS 70, which is a security audit of their systems to make sure that they're compliant with the best practices and procedures for maintaining secure cloud environments. So that's something we recommend that you look for. Finally, best practices that we'll go through on this slide is to say that we want you to find out which third parties the company deals with and whether those third parties are able to have any access to the data that you put onto their servers. You want to make sure that you understand who has access to what data, and particularly in the multi-tenant environment. If third parties are involved, what's their permissions? Do they have access? What's the policy for that sort of thing? It's critical that you develop a strong password policy. This is one of the most important best practices. And that policy is strong passwords, they're regularly changed, and it's very critical that that's universally adopted to maintain secure cloud computing. You want to ask your cloud vendor about their availability guarantees, or what we call service level agreements, and what the penalties are. So what happens if the server goes down for 6 hours? Is there any recourse that you have? Is there any sort of credit you'll get on your monthly statement? What availability have they had? What percentage is their uptime? Those are important questions to ask. In addition, you want to find out if the cloud provider will accommodate your security policies. So if you've set up in your organization security policies that are specific to your company's needs and security requirements, will your cloud provider adopt or accept those policies so that it's a seamless transition from your existing internal type of infrastructure into a cloud type infrastructure? And you want to be able to ask what the separation agreement looks like and what happens to the data if you decide to leave. So it's very important to say, look, 3 years from now we decide that we're going to build out our own data center. what happens to our arrangement? How do I get my data? What does it look like? How long does it take to get it? Is there anything I need to know? It's very important in case you decide to make a different change. Now, with respect to CRM, which is something that we spend a lot of time and effort with, I wanted to just outline a few of the CRM offerings that are in the cloud. So the most common or most popular CRM offering in the cloud is Salesforce.com. They've been around for about 8 years and have really made the cloud computing for CRM market. They really established it. However, Microsoft Dynamics CRM Online is, as everything with Microsoft, they have made big inroads into the CRM in the cloud offering. They have a very capable and robust solution for offering customers with sales, marketing, and customer service and support in a cloud-based environment. Sage SalesLogix Cloud is a relatively new offering from Sage. It builds on the existing foundation of Sage SalesLogix, but offers in a month-to-month rental a very similar to Salesforce type of application for providing sales, service, and support and marketing resources for cloud users. Sugar CRM is an open source solution which is based in the either on-premise or in the cloud. So you can rent their services as a service month to month, as well as SageCRM.com. So SageCRM.com is a cloud-based CRM application from Sage that you can rent from month to month. So we're going to take another poll before I ask questions. We're going to take another quick poll just to get an idea of where you're going with cloud computing for your business. So the question is really, how do you see your cloud fitting into your business in the near future? And we'll give you a moment to answer that. Okay, so we've got the answers back. It looks like everybody is interested in looking into it. Not a lot of people using it extensively right now, and that's pretty common. It's still at the hype stage. It's not in the adoption stage yet. So, but we're seeing it as a growing trend in the industry. So with that, what we'll do is we'll open up the phone lines to questions. And Alex, they don't need to do anything special to ask questions, I think.
They can either raise their hand, I'll unmute them, or they can type it into the question box or the chat box.
Perfect. Cool.
It looks like nobody has any questions right now. I'll give you a few more seconds.
Give it a few more seconds.
Still
okay, well, if we don't have any questions, that's fine. We didn't want to take your value. We just wanted to give you a brief overview of what's going on with cloud computing. If you have any questions or concerns, please let us know. We'll be sending a thank you email, which has our contact information on it. And we do appreciate your time today, and we wish you a great rest of the day.
Yeah, I'd just like to say one more thing. We're going to have another webinar in a few weeks on improving e-marketing techniques. You can find it on our website, and also this presentation will be posted on there as well, so you can refer back to that. Thank you.
Okay, everybody, thanks for your time.